Hey guys, here I am again with this part. It's just a part. Black Scarf, criminal organization. Elga is heavy in the air. I can't get out of this situation either. Last time I also ended and said, do I even want to get out of this situation? Yeah, or is this our chance now to set things straight, to show that yes, we found it ourselves here, we won't let anyone push us around, and it was clear to me that somehow we still weren't on equal footing. Maybe that was too much to ask after such a short time. A few young former neo-Nazi startup, they've got like 4 motorcycles, and then an established club or a former established club says, yeah, whatever, nothing's going to come of it anyway, and so on, with their drunken brawls and all that, or here and there and so on. But they didn't know that in our meeting we made it very clear. We said straight up, we're going through with this. We won't let anyone mess with us. And you always have to be careful, and I want to share that here as well. You have to be careful when you judge others like that, thinking you're the final boss yourself. Everyone finds their final opponent, yeah, or everyone always finds someone who's even tougher, and it's not always about looking like Marcus Rule, you know, really being packed with muscles through and through. But I've also met people who weren't into strength training or bodybuilding, but were incredibly tough and relentless when it came to pushing through to the bitter end. And that's where I would play a different card. And this sense of being sworn in that we had over those years of regular violent careers made it clear, yeah, okay, we can't go back. And everyone was agitated, even those who were with us now and not yet, the few who didn't come from this neo-Nazi skinhead subculture. They still somehow had to go along. They couldn't just leave and say, I've mentioned this before in this group, to say, yeah, I'm not in anymore. Instead, it was as a mutual incitement. So I get to this party spot where the party was, we meet up, and I say, there you are, what did he say? And we have to lose it, and we have no choice or chance. And that's the thing. When it's inside you, when you've let the beast out, or as I like to say, when you've let the wolf out, you always have to make sure the wolf is kept on a leash, even in this new life. But back then, you deliberately nurtured the aggressive, combative side to provoke it into full attack mode. Yes, those calls did happen. And I wanted to talk to our presidential board as well. So vice president, sergeant member, the ones we consulted with, they immediately said, go ahead, let's crush them. And then there were also suggestions like, let's just go there and pull out our guns right away. Throw a Molotov cocktail, kidnap the hamster, smash the microwave, all kinds of things. It sounds like that, but there are all kinds of different suggestions. And the crazy thing is, everyone wants to outdo each other in how extreme they are. Yeah, so one person says we should go there and slap them. What's that supposed to do? That doesn't help at all. Someone else says we should just set them on fire right away. Or just stab someone right away, or just shoot someone, or fire into the crowd. And so they know this isn't a joke anymore. And then the other guy, the one who suggested the slap, feels that way. He suggests getting a bazooka, acknowledging it's an exaggeration, but says the situation keeps escalating. That becomes hashtag, I know some people know this, that you get carried away in a group. We've seen that even in that murder case. There in Berlin, where they ran in now, I don't think that was premeditated murder. I don't know, it's hard for me to say. But then suddenly in the group, and then someone pulls out a weapon, and I don't want to judge that from the outside, but I know these group dynamics very well. Sometimes you carry a weapon with you, claiming it's for protection in case others are armed. Suddenly someone in the group shouts and shoots, and wow, really difficult dynamics that you can really only understand if you've dealt with them very, very intensively, or if you've been in those environments yourself. I initially wanted to stick to the rules, but then everyone came prepared with baseball bats, clubs, and other weapons. We ultimately decided against using any weapons. We'll do without, I mean, it already sounds strange when I say it, we'll do without weapons, and I'm talking about baseball bats, clubs, brass knuckles, or whatever. But the point is that we said, okay, we're not going in there with those. Knives, we don't want to stab anyone, but some people probably still had an axe with them. It's strange it's always so intense when I tell this myself, because Like, we don't want to stab anyone, but I bring an axe and first hit with the blunt side. I mean, a blunt blow to the face. I mean, it just cracks once and everything can be broken. It could be game over. The gradation is unbelievable even today. However, we had no intention of stabbing or shooting anyone. It wasn't too big for that. But still, it was clear we were going to stir things up. But I said, okay, listen up. I'll try to call 2 or 3 people from the round table again and talk to them about what we can do there. I said, guys, listen, wait. They had already left Wismar heading towards Schwerin because the others were sitting in Schwerin. And I made a detour together with someone, I think it was Christian Tiduera, who was the vice president at the time. And then we drove to the Helsindischen Schwerin, to the president. You know, anyway, that was the one who plotted that intrigue against me back then and so on. We didn't get along well, but we sat with him at the round table. And he was actually very thoughtful. He wasn't a war president. You could talk to him normally and so on. And I was actually pretty sure that if I told him the story, he would somehow intervene, mediate, or something like that. But I must admit, I wasn't always as calm and level-headed as I am now. That was a wink for podcast-only listeners. And then we made an appointment. I said, look, we need to meet. It's really, really urgent. Yeah. He said, okay, let's meet somewhere. We agreed on a meeting place and then we met. I explained the situation to him. I hope 180. I said, look, he's on it. He insulted. We gave him the chance to take it back. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. What should I do? Then he also said, yeah, I can try to call again. Then he called the other guy from the club who was still involved. I said, I don't care what he says. The other guy should apologize or at least take it back. I wasn't looking for a big apology since those are always such drama in the clubs. An apology is like admitting there was some truth to it at the core, even if they didn't fully mean it. Just some kind of mumbling like that. Just a bit of mumbling like that. But he reached it. I said, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. The others who are sitting together there in their garden shed or whatever, watching each other and drinking for 2 days, those are the ones I'm interested in. They're sitting there now and they're laughing at us and I just couldn't handle that. Yeah, just thinking about someone sitting there in their little room laughing at me, that was already game over for me. Everything just shut down at that point. It drove me crazy. No one could calm me down either. From my partner to people at the club, whenever I had those thoughts, I couldn't sleep. My heart was racing until I felt like I had to straighten things out and would have driven off at 4 a.m. And that's how I acted. I said, yeah, that can't be. They're sitting there together now and they gave us the warning. And then he called the guy who betrayed me like that and betrayed our club like that. He didn't pick up and so on. I told the president that we had no choice but to go through with it without mentioning the person's name we were discussing. Yeah, and I said, we'll go there. We gathered our team. We're almost 20 people. They also said they could get 20 people out on the street. And I said, then we'll just go through with it. Yeah, then he said, yeah, we would do it here too. We can't just let that slide. He challenged you like that. He insulted you like that. He said, you should come. If you manage to stand up for yourselves, then you have to get going. I said, well, we'll do it on the way now. You haven't achieved anything yourself. This round table, what's the point of it? If things go like this here, then honestly, who cares? And he said, well, then you just have to go through with it. You don't have any other choice. Okay, I was on the phone. I said, oh, guys, we'll meet here and there. Then we set up another meeting point somewhere near Schwerin. And then we kept calling the one who was still checking things out for them. But that's when I dropped out and said, oh, dude, whatever. And then I talked on the phone with the one who insulted us so much. Someone there handed him over to me on his phone. And then he said, yeah, this meeting and the boxing match, we can't do that. We can't do that in the middle of Schwerin, but we have an idea. We'll meet in Gardebusch. I think it was supposed to be in the parking lot. There's a Rayo next to an Aral gas station. And above that is a hardware store. I didn't really know the place, but 2 or 3 of my guys back then, they said, yeah, we know the location and yeah, it's no problem. Then that was included, so I said yes, and of course the whole black squad was there. a few from the support, Mike and another friend, so my business partner and another friend of his. So we ended up with about, I'd say, 18 to 20 people. Yeah, 16, 18, 20. I don't recall exactly, but it was definitely a strong team. All of them were in somewhat sporty clothes, not like biker vests or anything. And then with tight stretched jeans, ankles showing or whatever. But it was really about being athletic. And then something like that happened again, that at the meeting point where we were, okay, that's where we're going. And then we swore ourselves in. Then I always gave a kind of fiery speech and said, listen, they don't want to apologize. They look down on us. To them, we're all losers. And the time for talking is over. One thing we had experienced was still like this. You meet up, stand facing each other, and then both presidents walk up to each other, suddenly hug like bros, toast with an Ulster or a beer, and end up partying together. And this time we said, listen, if we just let this slide and it goes around about us, I said, then we're done. Then everyone will laugh at us and they'll keep telling the story that we didn't. I said, the time for talking is over. And then we went with the cars. We did Gardabush leads to a country road or a district road, already a somewhat busy road. I think it's a country road. It's a country road, maybe even a federal road. Who knows? And you drive down there, and the gas station is right there. When you take the exit towards Gardabush, we drove down there and we already saw about 12, 13, 14, 15 of them standing there, standing, such a colorful mix. All kinds of guys, but we looked down and you have to say you're nervous too. Anyone who says they didn't have any adrenaline is lying. You're nervous. You also have to consider what kind of guards do they have with them. Are they just showing up with 12, 13, 14 people, or did they manage to get 30 more people from their soccer crowd? So it was a big deal for us because some of them were stewards at Dynamo Schwerin, the soccer club, or were in the hooligan scene, and who knows. And these are circles that can mobilize 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100 people in no time. That's why we didn't know. They might have just shown up with 14 or 15 people in front. And when we drove by in the cars and looked, we thought, yeah, okay, this isn't exactly a meeting of the martial arts school. What's it called? Cobra Kai? Something like that. It doesn't really matter. You quickly categorize people that way. Man, in terms of danger, like it was absolute adrenaline pumping and so on. And we got out of the cars, which of course were also watching us. And then a mechanism kicks in that makes me kind of smile today. And some people here might take this the wrong way, but it's like you get into a kind of tunnel. You don't care about anything anymore. You block out the police. What happens to the victim? What happens to you? Whether you could get hurt. You get into a kind of frenzy, and we got out of the car, opened the trunk, everything. And then there were cars parked. They were watching us. And then they were down there like this. I can't hold the mic like this. Yeah, they were standing like this, like this. If you want to support our de-radicalization and anti-violence work online and in schools, check out my book, Hassmacht, Violence, Games, Bestseller, the brand behind the product, King Among the Kongs. Links to support us are below the video. Thumbs up, down, or comment. It all helps. Thanks and ahoy. The video continues. They puffed themselves up like that. They were standing there like that. And then, so there were 23 of them. And then, with bomber jackets and pitbull jackets and whatever. And, and then we got back in the cars and said, listen, everyone here, keep your batons and clubs down by your legs. And from the hardware store, it's a bit of a slope down to the gas station. And we said, listen, we're going to go down really slowly. And on my command, everyone rushes forward and just hits anyone in the way, just smash everything immediately. If anyone tries to talk about the future, just take them all out right away. I think that says a lot about my way of thinking and acting back then. Thank God I've left that behind, and I just want to say that again here. Anyone can get out of this cycle of violence. Violent individuals understand the impact on victims, themselves and their families, including prison, paranoia, police pursuit, charges, and more. You can get out too. Feel free to contact Extremist Laws. Everything is linked below this video. This topic is important to me because it involves situations where, in any case, we went down and I think the other group still thought, okay, let's gather together. And then really just about 10 or 15 meters in front of them, I said, attack. Just shouted it out. Really simple, not some secret code word like macaroni cheese or anything, just attack. And then we started running. You could see everyone pulling out their batons and crowbars. And then you saw the other group. You could see it in their eyes, how their eyes got wide. Yeah, and you can already tell a lot from that what it does to their body language. Do they back off or do they get into a fighting stance? And they also shouted, attack, and then it started. That means they hadn't coordinated at all, no structure, no leadership, and they were all high as a kite, thinking they're the king of the world, not scared of anything, just going for it. And as soon as we started running, the first ones went down right away. My partner Mike took the first one down with his baton. His face went straight to the ground. As the guy I had talked to on the phone before came up to me, I think he thought we wanted to talk. I yelled at him, no talking. And honestly, I even felt sorry for him. I really did, because I don't think he had any connection to this. He wasn't expecting any of it. He really thought he could just sort things out right there with his backup in the background. I just pushed him aside because I couldn't even hit him. I don't even know if he got hit at all. I just felt sorry for him. Then a big... And I would say you might think it was a big brawl, but it was more like us hunting down each one of them individually. There were also a few who got caught up in it and had no idea what it was about or who they were messing with and so on. A couple of them, 2 or 3, who I got to know later, were really 2 meters tall, but they weren't aggressive. They just stood against the wall and asked, what's going on? Some stood before them with clubs or fists, delivering slaps and hitting faces. They stood there bewildered, wondering who these people were and what was happening. So they really had no idea, and some of them even tried to fight back, and then they were chased back and forth across the parking lot. Then they were standing 30 or 40 meters away and said, yeah, so what's this all about? And so on. And the situation, how long does something like that last? Maybe if it took a long time, it was maybe 2 minutes. This isn't a choreographed fight scene in some movie that lasts 12 minutes. It all happens in a flash. I don't think any of us got hit at all. We took down several people and completely lost it. Some of them were almost impossible to get under control again. I was just keeping an eye out for the president. He was standing just around the corner. Yeah, I barely saw him against the... So I went up to him and told him, that he should fight. Yeah. And then there were insults directed at me. And then I saw that physically he couldn't do anything anymore. So I went up to... there were 23, then 2 or 3 things happened. Not even that. It's really strange to explain. Even now, when I saw that someone physically and mentally just wasn't there, then that wasn't a reason to beat him up or to hit him. Yes, I always tried to make a distinction there. It's not because I wanted to be super fair or anything like that. No, that wasn't what it was about for me. But it wasn't like I stood there afterwards either. You saw how I knocked him down with a single punch. He nearly stumbled over his own shoes. Yeah, that's not really a big achievement either. I pushed him up against the wall. I shoved him against the wall, demanding to know what was happening. My guys all fled, standing 40 meters away, not daring to come closer. They just stood there. Imagine being around 35 or 36 years old. When he arrived, some parts shaved, some with muscles, some without. It was really intense. I grabbed him by the collar and he was, let's say, 5 or definitely a good 2 meters tall. Also, definitely 140 kilos or so, right? I had him by the collar and even then it was something. It really was. Now you want to, now you know, and then he just couldn't handle it at all. Couldn't talk to me properly. He was totally shocked that we went through with it like that. I think he thought he'd come there and everything would be sorted out and we'd kneel down afterwards and give each other a little kiss, yeah? And that was it. We don't do that and then whipping, yeah, and there were also people like my partner at the time, Mike, and so on. Now we have to beat them all up completely. Chase after everyone. I said, okay, they're already defeated here. That was it. 3 were standing against the wall like that. 4 others from them ran away and we didn't see them again for days. 2 or 3 others were chased and they kept running away. My guys didn't feel like running after them. It was definitely really intense. I was carrying one of them. The other biker said, hey, stop it. What's this about? I thought we wanted to talk. I told him to shut up. We didn't want to talk. Yeah, I offered that several times. He should call me. He should apologize and so on. We could have settled and sorted everything out, but you didn't want that. You said we should straighten things out, and that's what we did, but you didn't care. For us, it wasn't about saying we're dissolving this motorcycle club now, as that wasn't our original intention. It came later in our career than in the motorcycle club, but that really wasn't our thing. We're out of that. It wasn't about that for us. For us, it was about making our reputation clear. Whoever challenges us will take on the challenge. He kept talking to me. Then one of my guys went up to him and said, shut your mouth, you know? Yeah, and he probably thought, if you've been moving in these circles and you've always gone everywhere without ever getting into trouble, and you've never had anything to do with 1%ers or with crime, then you can just walk around with that biker vest and go through a small town like Gardebusch or Rena or whatever those places are called. Yeah, you can just walk through there too, and everyone says, oh, but you've never really done anything, you know? When you suddenly, well, today when I think about it, it was just monkey business on my part, monkey business on the other side too. People could have been seriously injured or killed here, no joke. And here it's about my call and bikers and honor and loyalty and losing face and so on. I just can't understand it anymore today. In any case, grabbing him by the collar like that caused an argument that continues to this day. I said he had a gun with him. I never claimed it was a real gun. He mumbled something to me and so on. Then he said, I'll shoot you. As strange as it sounds, then I reached in and grabbed it. I said, then pull the thing, then pull the thing. You know, the guys are around me. Then pull the thing. They would have pulled that thing across my face faster than he could have seen. And then at some point, this game plays out again, but you still go through the situation completely. Calls it off. It's clear the thing is over here, nothing else is coming, no reinforcements, and they're not going to make one last attack. Start an attack on us, and then I made an announcement to them, said, listen, if you drive into Wismar again, you have to register. If we hear anything again, if you say anything about us, I said, then we'll hunt down every single one of you. We looked at everyone here. Yeah, that's basically a threat that you make. And then says here, a few people identified some individuals and their origins. We warn that if we hear even a rumor of anyone saying a bad word, we'll hunt down and take action against every single one of you. For now, you can lick your wounds and then get lost. That's how we really split up. Went our separate ways. The other guy who was still looking around, he took his president and they took off. Yeah, but he couldn't manage to pull himself together anymore. He didn't see enough. Back to the cars. What happens, of course, you saw how you right away, first thing, and a hit. And everything was like that, and he chased him and couldn't stop. Everything gets so euphoric and intense and super, super great and awesome, and we're the toughest and no one can touch us, and that's it. Well, if we hear something now, next time, little ones who leave, and a total euphoria, and sure, okay, that was already in the city area, and then with this conversation, the situation afterwards, when all that 2 minutes, 3 minutes fighting and breaking up and chasing, then 5 minutes of talking, then we knew, okay, now everyone in the cars and we have to get out of here. We came through Schwerin before and it was clear to us the police are moving in somehow. There were also bystanders standing around, there were people standing around. It was clear, now the police are coming here. And then we drove off in the cars and went from Gardebusch towards the Grävsmühlen highway. So either a country road or a federal road, whatever it is, up in the car. And then it was clear, okay, once you have the stuff inside, crap, under no circumstances should you get caught by the police now. Then there was a gas station. I think there's a gas station in Rena, so we stopped there for a moment and said, look, we're going to split up with the cars now. Some will take the country road, the others go that way. If the police stop one car, well, that's just bad luck, but then it won't be so obvious. And with these people, they first have to prove something and so on, and then the others also have to make a statement first. And we knew that. So we split up and said, look, we'll meet up later at the hall where we had celebrated. We all made it through without the police. We then met at the hall, and that's when I got the first call. I pick up and I say yes, and then he says, what did you do? Why did you attack them? And so on. I say, and guess who it was, who it just was, who it was. The priest I had spoken to earlier at the round table calls me and asks why we freaked out like that, why we overreacted and attacked right away, why we didn't want to talk. The others still wanted to talk. I told him we were with him before and didn't need to discuss it on the phone. He said it would still have consequences and we needed to talk about it. I asked about the consequences. They challenged us to come. We did, but there was no order and nobody stayed down. I didn't suggest consequences, only that we needed to discuss it. I got a call, you guys hit right away, you had your clubs with you and so on. And I said, look, why not talk about this on the phone now? I said we can gladly set up a meeting and then they can come and we can suggest a neutral location. We can meet up and I don't mind if anyone here knows about it. We'll see, as long as they really commit to it. The ones lying on the side, yes, you need to calm down and so on. I said, no, we don't have to at all because we were just so euphoric. And we said, this isn't going to work at all. And in any case, a really intense situation, then also the call, then it was clear, then we got the information that the cops were somehow getting involved too. And then it became an urgent matter for the chapters from Rostock and Schwerin and from others from the round table who said, we don't care, but for half of them it was important somehow because this black union from Schwerin was somewhat connected with them and there were overlaps and so on. And then came the accusation was directed at us, saying we were too much over the top and that we needed to discuss how things should proceed, and I agreed. Someone called me, like I said, he later became a friend of mine, a businessman and a very sharp person. He called me and said, listen, there's a need to talk, and we would provide a meeting place in our clubhouse. The bar area is finished now. It would be neutral ground, but you have to promise you come without weapons, you come without anything, and so on. We freak out here, talk about it, and so on. I said, man, I don't know, dude, I don't know. They initially say it's okay to proceed in that situation. Screw it. Then there was this meeting in Rostock and what came out of it and how come on, I'll tell you about it next time, guys. And as always, I remain with an ahoy from the coast.